Hey friend, welcome to Healthy by Heather Brown. Do terms like mental health, intermittent fasting, and buzzy wellness words make you feel overwhelmed? If you don't know where to start with loving the life you already have and letting your good things grow until they become daily habits, I got you, mama. So join me as we unpack what it looks like to live a life well loved and redefine a new approach to health from the inside out. Think of this space as your girlfriend's group text with the occasional dad joke and point of view from my Yankee hubby, Eric. We promise to give you key takeaways that you can implement right away to pursue health in your mind, body, and soul, because God made us that way. Don't stress. Let's hop on this Hot Mess Express together. Okay, we're bringing a hot topic in my DMs today to the marriage corner. So, Eric, the topic of conversation, which we kind of alluded to in the last marriage corner that we recorded, is about Disney. And I had said that you might have some hot takes to share on either the theme parks and your desire or lack of desire to go, and then just about them as a company and entertainment industry overall.
Well, I appreciate your thoughts on me having hot takes. Sometimes I tend to have strong opinions, but it was very interesting. I know you posted that question about Disney on your Instagram, and you sent me a lot of the responses, and I found them very interesting. And obviously, it's a very, I think, divided subject as far as people's opinions, much like many things are today in society. And yeah, I think it's a very interesting conversation. And I guess the first thing that I would say, and this is something that you and I always talk about, is, I think our general opinion is that people and families need to do what's best for themselves and for their families. That's of utmost importance. Each family's situation is different. And I think you and I both recognize that. And as we become older, we don't know people's history, people's backgrounds. So I will just say the opinions that we share today are our opinions. And I think, they're what's best for our family as well, too. But I love hearing other people's opinions. And I think this is a great topic.
Yeah, for sure. So just as a little bit of background, first of all, I did not go to a Disney park until I met you. How old were we when I went for the first time? Mid-20s?
Yeah, mid-20s. I think we had just been married. We went with my triplet brother and sister. I want to say maybe we were 25 or 26. We were relatively newly married, did not have kids at that time. So it was just adults. And we just did a one-day quick trip to the Magic Kingdom. What were your thoughts on that? Can you even remember it?
I do remember it. And I think that in my mind, it had been built up as this completely magical place that was just going to knock my socks off. And I do remember when we walked in and even when we left being like, wait, that was it? Just a little underwhelmed.
Yeah. I definitely think you can feel that way. We talk about expectations a lot as well, too. And when you build something up in your mind, or you've heard people talk about all the magical experiences they maybe had with Disney, you think, oh man, I'm going to have these same type of experiences. Now, granted, it was one day, it was very rushed. Obviously, people have different experiences as well, too. But it was interesting reading a lot of the comments. That seems to be a fairly common opinion as well, too, that it wasn't necessarily all that what people thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And I think that maybe it would have been different, too. Like you said, if we had been staying there for a week and I could have done all the parks, but I think we literally had something like 7 hours. And so you said, well, if we're going to take you guys to one park and you've never been, we've got to go to, what is it called?
Magic Kingdom.
Magic Kingdom, because that's the quintessential castle and what you think of when you hear Disney. So maybe had I have been to all the other parks and seen the other parts of Disney, it would have been a different experience. Or if I had grown up going there, and so it was more about the nostalgia, which I think it is for a lot of families.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think one of the things I was going to talk about was my personal experience with Disney. And my parents let us watch, all the classic Disney movies, whether it was Lion King, Robin Hood, Jungle Book, all those classic movies. Grew up watching those. And we recently just had a podcast talking about our favorite movies growing up as kids. And for me, a majority of those movies were Disney movies.
Same.
And we were just talking about the Mighty Ducks Disney movie, The Big Green, which is with me coaching soccer of our kids, Disney movie. A lot of these movies you don't even think about are Disney movies, heavyweights, and then you think about all the classic animated movies as well, too. It's funny I said classic because one of our good friends recently listened to the podcast about rom-coms and how we rank them. And she laughed because I said classic so much. So I'm going to have to try and watch that. But what I was going to say is, I grew up watching all these movies. We went to Disney one time as a family growing up, went with our grandparents.
How old were you?
I think we were around maybe 6, 7, or 8, kind of around there. I think the thing I remember most, didn't remember the food, remembered maybe one of the rides, really didn't remember the rides. I remember being there with my grandparents, really.
Yeah.
But I also have other memories of being with my grandparents as well, too, and I don't consider that Disney experience that much different than other experiences I had with my grandparents. I think about being around my grandparents' pool much more than I think about that Disney trip.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think all of those things are different. And I think one of the things we want to talk about in this marriage corner, and this is kind of a hot topic, obviously, there's a lot of political issues as it relates to Disney right now, especially Disney World.
Oh, do you mind? Because that was one of the things that people were saying to me in my direct messages was, wait, did I miss something? Did something come out new with Disney? So can you speak to that? Because you keep up with more of the news on Disney than I do.
I do try and keep up with the news. My parents do live in Tampa, so I do get some of the local news from Florida as well, too. But there's basically a culture battle going on between Governor Ron DeSantis, Republican, as well as the Disney Corporation, who recently changed CEOs, went back to their former CEO, Bob Iger. And basically, Ron DeSantis is pushing back against a lot of the agenda that Disney seems to be pushing as far as, transgender issues. Disney even put themselves out there as it related to, back, I think it was one summer ago, there was the quote unquote, don't say gay bill, when people were thinking that the government was trying to restrict speech or how different topics are taught in school. So there's a big culture battle going on between Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, as well as Disney World in Florida. It's gotten so far, whereas Disney basically had special privileges with the land that they own around Disney. And kind of in the back and forth, Ron DeSantis is trying to take away a lot of those privileges. It's like anything that's political. It's a give and a take and
lots of nuance.
But anyways, there's a lot of things going on. But I think from a political and more of a cultural standpoint, people are becoming more aware of Disney's cultural opinions as it relates to some of the topics that they are pushing in their movies. And like I said, even pushing outside of their movies, just generally as a company. And I think that's really causing people to pay more attention to the things that Disney is producing.
Yes, I would agree with that. So I'm going to share one of the direct messages that I got from a girl named, and I'll just call her KG. She said, "Oh, Heather, I could write a book on the Disney stuff. We were going yearly. I even partnered with Disney a few times. We absolutely loved it. We just got a check in our spirit around the same time, specifically surrounding the Disney messaging." And I think that she's talking about what you're alluding to, where they came out and said that they were going to start putting more of this stuff in children's movies. She said, "Movies with elements we would never allow to influence our kids in any other situation, but Disney makes witchcraft look beautiful, if we are honest. We had to draw a hard line in the sand and say, no, not our children. We canceled the last trip we had planned and let our Disney Plus expire. I would be lying to you if I said we don't miss it, but our kids are more precious to us than any place." And so obviously that's a pretty strong opinion. And I think that there's a lot of people that would agree with that and a lot of people that would disagree.
Yeah, most definitely. And I like how she was very honest and said, I'd be honest if I said that we didn't miss it. I think a lot of people are like that because they grew up watching Disney and, a lot of these films. And I think that's a very honest kind of opinion. I do think sometimes there's words such as, what did she say? Not magic, but witchcraft that kind of, some people are like, whoa, that's kind of far out there. Like, I don't know if I agree with that.
Right.
But once again, that's somebody's opinion. And it sounds like she's done her research as well, too. And I'm obviously, like I said, we don't know everyone's background, but that's her opinion. And I think that's a valid opinion as well, too. I think, kind of what I was going to say. And one thing that I've been thinking about recently is sometimes I ask myself the question, am I turning into my parents?
Right.
As far as, a lot of these conservative opinions, you're more guarded in what your children are watching. You always grow up, you're saying, oh, I'm never going to be like my parents in that regards. Now, granted, my parents were a little bit different, and I think Disney was different back when we were growing up and a lot of the things they were producing. Maybe I'm just naive, but I do believe that. But I do think, I said, am I turning into my parents? Am I becoming that cliche? But then I started thinking about it and I was thinking, what really is wrong with that? What is wrong with being that cliche of you turning into your parents? Especially if you had parents, the honest nature of it is our parents have much more experience than we do. And a lot of times with experience comes wisdom. And I think, when we're younger, we tend to discount that. You think in your 20s and your early 30s, you know it all. I'm going to do it different than my parents. But honestly, our parents do have a lot of experiences. They've seen a lot of things. And I think we need to really examine that and respect some of those opinions more. I think that's just kind of one thing I've been wrestling in my mind. Like, am I turning into my parents? And kind of this thought process of really trying to think about what we want to expose our children to.
Hey, mama, do you feel like you are surviving on chicken nuggets and goldfish and haven't stepped in a gym since college? Or maybe, on the other hand, you feel like you're checking every health box and are still hitting a brick wall? Well, I'm here to help you redefine what it means to be healthy from the inside out. I'm a former fitness instructor and everyday mom who is passionate about helping you create a beautiful life you freaking love. So I'm opening the doors to the Healthy by Heather Brown membership to the public and can't wait to walk alongside you and be your cheerleader. When you join, you'll be added to my exclusive Facebook group. You'll receive my Sunday reset training that will help you create promising, sustainable, healthy choices from the inside out, which will in turn lead to a more joy-filled life for busy moms. Live coaching and workout classes with yours truly. You asked and I listened. We'll talk about how to balance your whole health when you have kids and life get busy with school and activities. It includes grocery haul ideas and accountability as we all reset together each Sunday. There will be so much offered that you won't find anywhere else on the internet. Are you ready to take one step out of stress, shame, unhealthy boundaries, and fatigue and add healthy rhythms to the Hot Mess Express? When you're ready, I'll see you on the other side of the link in the show notes. I'm excited and ready to hold your hand and meet face to face. Yes, it's interesting you say that because I definitely, if you listen to our episode where we talked about one of my favorite movies was The Lion King, and I jokingly said that my parents made me write a book report before we could own it, these kind of things about what was wrong with it from a biblical worldview. And I think that one thing that I'm starting to realize is I don't mind people having differing opinions than me. And I don't mind, I like seeing other people's sides. I think it's interesting. And I really like being willing to ask questions. So now when my mom has told me these things about Disney growing up that maybe I thought were completely ludicrous back in the day, now I'm like, well, I'm at least going to research it and see if what she was saying has some grounds or a leg to stand on versus just completely dismissing it immediately.
Yeah. And I think you've come a long way as far as examining that and kind of your mom's stance and her opinions. And yeah, everyone's going to come to their own conclusions and make their own decisions, like I said, for what's best for them and their families. On that note, do you want to hear my hot take on Disney and my overall opinion on Disney?
Yes, please bring it.
All right. So along the same lines of, am I becoming my parents? Am I becoming that cliche? I truly believe that the Disney of today is much different than the Disney that we grew up in. I truly believe that they are pushing an agenda that is very prideful. And I don't use that term lightly. I think, obviously you hear, gay pride, and we have these pride weeks and these pride parades, and, they're very proud of those things. And as I get older, the more I really examine, and one thing that I try to examine in my life is how proud I am and how that really is, in my opinion, the root of all sin, being proud of yourself in a non-humble way. There's a way to feel good about yourself and be proud of yourself for the convictions that you have, and especially if they're rooted in God's word. But, I really think that Disney is beginning to push an agenda that is, whether it's the transgender issue or it's, some of these pride issues as well, too. I think you and I are going to agree that, people want to make decisions, in their life based on their sexual preference. That's their decision, and I'm going to respect that as well, too.
And I'm going to love them.
I'm going to love them. But also, too, I don't expect you to push your beliefs on me as well too. And I think Disney is kind of crossed that line a little bit to pushing their beliefs and their opinions on other people.
And actually, my biggest problem is with my kids. That's where I draw the line.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because my next point that I wrote down exactly about that, it's, how it relates to our children. And I guess one of the points I wanted to make, and this is why I wrote down, if you want to change the trajectory of a society, you target the kids. Even going back to biblical times, you see examples of this, specifically, the devil attacks children. When Pharaoh went and tried to kill all the children, he missed Moses during that. Following up in the New Testament, Herod tried to kill all the children, he missed Jesus, and you see all throughout history, whether it's authoritarian governments, I hate to use the example of Nazi Germany, but what did Hitler do? He started the Hitler Youth. He was starting to indoctrinate these children so that when they grew up, they would have the exact same mindset, that he was pushing on them, and, injecting that propaganda in them. So if you want to change society, you start with the children and you start to mold them into what you want them to believe. And I really think that there's a lot of aspects in our society today, and specifically Disney, are trying to do that. So without going into really too much more detail behind my opinion, I think I kind of expressed that, in the last, few minutes. I guess my question to you, Heather, would be is, so now that we have this opinion, or we believe that, Disney is maybe, pushing these agendas, how do you apply that to our life? Or what are your thoughts on that in general? Understanding as well, too, like we said at the very beginning, everybody has different opinions, and, you're going to do what's best for you and your family. This is just our opinion.
Right. 100%. I think that for us, it's just going to be continuing to evaluate and probably pay more attention to what Disney is putting out before just blindly allowing our kids to watch things now. I think that it's really interesting that even our kids are starting to pick up and ask questions or make statements about even older Disney movies. Like, they'll literally call it like, are we going to watch Scary Mickey? And it's like, why do our kids think that is scary if it's an older Disney episode, number one? Like, they have a more tender spirit than we do because they are younger, and we want to protect and shelter that, I think, biblically. And then I also think that there are so many things that the boys have said to me in Disney movies. Mommy, is that a boy or a girl? And when you go back and look at a lot of these characters all throughout the movies, even 10, 20 years ago, they are, is it androgynous?
Androgynous.
Yeah. And so I think, to me, it's just starting to realize, like, I have to do more research to protect my children. I can't just assume that anything that comes on Disney is going to be okay.
Yeah, I think
and I hate that burden. That stinks.
Yeah, you wish you didn't have to think about that. And I think you've even been more on the cutting edge of trying to realize, what are these agendas that are being pushed? How is it really affecting our children? I feel like I've been playing catch up a little bit in regards to that. But us as a family unit, I think it's time for us to take a stand and really make changes that reflect our values and the way we live. I was more under the impression of, what's the harm of our kids watching some of these Disney movies? Well, the fact of the matter is, we don't know all the harm, but what I do know is, if we don't expose them to some of those topics, granted, they will be exposed in other ways. We can't shelter our kids from every single opinion that we maybe have reservations against, but we can still do our part. Honestly, we still have Disney right now. It's part of our Hulu package. So what does it look like if we get rid of Hulu and the Disney package and Disney Plus, whatever that is? You know what it looks like? It looks like, in my opinion, we have more free time with our family. It means maybe we go on that hike by the creek. Maybe we go in the backyard and kick the soccer ball around for a little bit. Maybe we go to the library and get some more books, push those things as opposed to, and, I think a lot of people fall into this trap of, oh, I'm going to put this Disney movie on and almost, use it almost as a babysitter a little bit. It makes our parenting easier. And when I was thinking through this, I was thinking about that interview you had with Matt, and basically that's more of a reflection on us as parents. We need to stop giving ourselves these crutches and really take these challenges. I don't even want to say challenges, but take these opportunities to create more time with our kids, to really invest in them and push these positive habits, as opposed to, I want to say, these quote unquote lazy habits. I really just think that, we need to put our money where our mouth is and make this change and see where that goes.
So while Eric is addressing that, I think that it is also really interesting. Another place that Eric put his money where his mouth was on the way to Morgan Wallen. Do you want to tell him what you were going to buy in the gas station and what you didn't and the stats behind it where other people are standing up?
So it is, once again, very interesting that you mentioned that, because one of my last points in you're discussing, we were driving to Morgan Wallen. We stopped at a gas station. I wanted to buy just one Bud Light and do kind of a funny video or Instagram to send to some of our friends. And I had it in my hand. Heather goes, "What is that?" And I said, "Oh, I just want to do this funny video." She's like, "I don't care, even if it's for a funny video." And I was like, all right, that's fine. Got a different drink. I think what this whole Bud Light controversy, and if you're not too familiar with it, basically Bud Light started this marketing campaign that had Dylan Mulvaney, who is a very prominent transgender influencer, put her on the cans. Obviously, there's been a bunch of blowback in regards to that, specifically as it relates to Bud Light sales. And after 4 weeks of this marketing campaign coming out, I believe the most recent data that I saw was that Bud Light's sales are down 21%, which is huge.
Unheard of.
It's unheard of. And who knows where that will go. But I think what it does show is that we have, as consumers, we have the power to change the narrative and specifically change culture. And honestly, this is cliched once again, but it just takes one person or one family to make that change and have the courage to make that change. And then that turns into another person, one person making that change, and another and another and another. And before you know it, bottom lines and profits start to change for a lot of these companies. Then they're forced to make changes. They're going to see that the silent majority is no longer silent. But once again, it goes back to the almighty dollar. That's what motivates people. And if they see that bottom line changing, and more people, cancel subscriptions or really make decisions to put their money where their values are. Having said that, that is extremely difficult to do in today's society with all the companies that have such different political issues and backgrounds, whether it's Apple, whether it's Target, a lot of these companies, you can't get away from all of it. You can't. But I think you can pick and choose your battles and kind of go from there.
And I think it's really interesting because I talk all the time, and you do too, about how health is getting better 1% every day. It's not saying that you have to radically change and cancel everything. You don't. You're trying to get 1% better every day. And I think that applies to our spiritual health, our mental health, where we're putting our money behind, all those kind of things.
Not only are you putting your money behind your actions and what you're living, but if you do decide to get rid of some of these things that you're paying to these companies, whether it's Disney Plus, you're saving money. You know what?
That's win-win.
Honestly, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about this recently. The economy is changing right now and the economic conditions are not the best. So if there's a way that you can make these small changes, see what your life looks like without some of these things that we take for granted that we use as a crutch. Just give it a trial, just like all these companies, they give you a 1 week free trial. You know what?
That's right.
You can give your family a 1 week free trial without Disney and see how it goes.
That's right. I love it, Eric.
I'm guessing you probably won't miss it.
True. So I'm going to read a few more of your opinions and then we'll wrap because we have gone a little bit long, but it's been worth it. I have loved this conversation. I've heard from several of you that said, we limit Disney only watching what we approve. We will not be going to any parks. It is evil, evil, evil. Someone else said, I'm torn. Another person, love it. Way overpriced, but hashtag Disney magic. My kids will be fine without it. It's absolutely the best trip ever. I used to work with Eric and I'd love to help you plan. So maybe you can reach out to her if we ever decide to go. Eric's like, we're not going. Eric didn't want to go before all this happened. So we'll see what happens. Love it. We used to visit every year as a family. No more. There's too much hidden in the messaging. I'm over Disney. They're all about normalizing witchcraft. That's the second person to say that. Interesting. Trans agenda. It's pretty much antichrist. It's a big nope for me. Not all it's cracked up to be. It's just okay. It's too expensive, but I still love it and love making the memories of my children. We love it. Is it expensive? Yes. Is it a ton of prep work? Yes, but we have a blast. It is sick, corrupt. I'm annoyed that tons of influencers go to Disney parks. Hate the political agenda associated, but we love Disney. Not a fan of them. Hate a lot of what they stand for, but love the magic the park brings to our family. Old Disney, maybe. New Disney, nope, nope, nope. And I mean, I could go on and on. I got so many responses from you guys on this, which I love hearing. So whether you agree or disagree with a lot of this, I think that that's what Eric and I love hearing. We like hearing differing opinions, and you're not going to agree with everything we said today, just like you don't agree with everything that we say on anything,
So, along those same lines, post your comments about what you think about the topics that we discussed after listening to this episode. I'd love to hear those. And
You can leave us a review on the podcast to share those comments with us.
Leave a review and let's keep the conversation going. So that's what's important.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope that we didn't make your ears bleed hearing our opinions. We love you guys. And like we said, we welcome hearing all different opinions and backgrounds and your stories of Disney and why you love it. Maybe you'll still convince Eric that he needs to take our boys there just that one time. We'll see.
I always say things are always changing, so you never know which way things are going to go. So keep an open mind.
That's right. TBD. All right. We'll talk to you guys soon. Can't wait to read your fiery Disney commentary down in the reviews of this podcast. Don't forget to leave us that 5-star rating. See you next time.